Hello, everybody. This video is if you are joining the sewing so long, the sampler so long. This is the basics of cutting fabric for first time or beginning quilters. So we are just going to go over the basics on this. It should get you comfortable with cutting fabric and give you a general understanding of what the directions mean in the pattern. Now, I do have my pattern off to the side. I do not want to say the measurements online. You should have printed the pattern from Delaware Quilts, and I will link it again at the end of this video. Um, but what I've done is I've taken my piece of fabric. This is from the Lori Hope collection that I will be using for the basic sew long. And what I'm doing is I'm just folding it up in half right below the selvage line. And the selvage line is just that rough piece of fabric that comes on the edge of the width of fabric, the width of fabric. And the only reason why I'm doing that is to obtain as much cutting space as I can and usable fabric. So once I've had this folded in half, now this has been ironed and lightly starched. We will be discussing starching or starch methods in a different video. However, I can tell you my personal preference is just to starch lightly. I starch very lightly because I like a little give on my fabric when I am sewing blocks together. So on your ruler, you have your vertical lines. Now, let me see if I can show you. You have your vertical lines and your horizontal lines. So your sky line and then your line looking up to the sky. Okay. What we are going to do is on the horizontal line, the bottom number, we're going to find a line, a horizontal line that covers to the edge of your fabric or goes over your fabric a little. We're going to push it in just a little bit to make sure that we've covering, or we can see both sides of that edge of that fabric. We are aligning that horizontal line with the fold of the fabric, with the fold of the fabric. And we are just going to take a cut, remembering to close our rotary cutter when we are through. And so I've just taken a really thin smidgen of a line off. And I'll put that in that pile right there. Now, if you're a first time sewer, you may want to pin this together because we're going to flip this, and we're flipping it so we can get those nice even cuts. So I'm going to pick this up, turn it over with the fold side still facing me, and remove that pin. Wanting to make sure everything's nice and tidy. We're going to look at our instructions. Again, the pink is going to represent the go block in this pattern. So I'm going to look at my pattern, find out what the width of this strip is supposed to be. Find it on my ruler. Place that on my ruler on top of my fabric. Again, making certain the horizontal line is even with the fold of the fabric. Even with the fold of the fabric. So it will look, see if you can see that, if I can get this. So I have my horizontal line, even with the fold of my fabric, and my vertical line even on the edge of that fabric. And then with my rotary cutter, checking a couple of times to make sure we're certain, I'm going to take a cut. Move this over for another block. Okay. So we only have to make one strip for this pattern. And what I'm going to do now is I am going to cut it a little bit longer than the strip size requires. And that will give me some playroom when we sew these strips together so that we can subcut. So I'm making this one at 8 inches. So again, it's going to be 8 inches by the width of fabric. That is for the gold block. My pink will be for the gold block. Now my green fabric will be for my right block. I'm gonna I folded it over like I did with the pink one. Cutting that little strip to make it even. If you want to pin, you can. We're going to hold it, fold it over, make sure everything is nice and even, and both are flush. Both sides are flush. We are now going to go ahead and cut as required, as the pattern requires for the brown block. Again, making sure that my horizon line is on the fold of the fabric, and my vertical line is at the edge of the fabric. And I am going to take a cut, put this aside for another block, turn this over. I am going to cut this one just a little bit bigger like I did with the pink one. I'm going to cut this at 9 inches. So I'm going to find my 9-inch vertical line up my horizon line, and it does not matter. At this point, it does not matter where you are as far as the width of fabric and where you're positioned. You just want to make sure that you're somewhere on your ruler, you are at that 9-inch mark, and that you found a horizontal line that you can align everything with. And once you're happy with that, you're going to take a cut. I am going to set that aside because it was folded over. The pink is now a 16-inch strip and the blue is an 18-inch strip. Now for the white fabric, or what I've chosen as my background fabric, which actually has some pattern in here. Now, I've cut this before, and so it is pretty even, so I do not have to take a cut. I am going to be making 3 separate cuts on the background because the background is going to pair with your solid colored blocks or your print blocks. So I'm going to make my first cut. I'm making my first cut, finding, and I'm going to flip this over and use my 1/2 inch measurements. And I'm going to take that cut, set this aside just for a minute. And I am going to cut this down to 8 to match the pink strip, with the fold being on my left hand side or at the 8 line. Now I'm going to take it there, left side. I'm going to repeat that for the same measurements that is required on the blue strip and as printed out in the pattern. I am going to go ahead and cut that out. I may need a new blade in my rotary cutter. Let me just get that lined up one more time. Try not to stretch the fabric. And then I'm going to make this strip again with the fold on my number 9 line and finding a horizontal line. Cutting that. And on this background, they are wanting 4 additional squares. So the square measurement, I'm going to cut the square measurement. I'm going to cut a strip the width of that square. And now I am just going to take off that little bit so I have a nice straight edge on the end. And so I'm really just looking to line everything up on the horizon. And my block, this is not very straight. So now I am going to subcut this down. It is asking for 4 squares. I'm going to measure exactly on the squared line. I'm cutting a little bit bigger, or I'm cutting, but the same measurement that is going to be in your vertical line is also going to be the same measurement that is going to be on your horizontal line because it's a square. So we are going to cut that, set that aside, repeat. Okay, and if it is not quite, if it seems like it's a little short, this one here is a little short because I cut a little crooked. Don't feel like you have to cut more fabric. This is more than a 1/4 inch, or it's less than a 1/4 inch. So I'm going to get that when I sew it. I'm just going to be mindful that that is a little shorter. And when I sew, I'm going to accommodate for that. So I'm just going to put a pin or a clip in it. And that just kind of helps me remind me something's going on with that block. And there you have it. I am now ready and prepared to sew our first block. I have my strip that matches that's going to be paired with this, with my dark, and my strip that is paired with that. And that is it. If you have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section. I'll either address it on the in this video, or we will address it on the sew along that will happen on Monday, January 8th at 7 Central Time. Thank you so much, and we will see you later. Remember to be kind. Thank you.